the question now? If not, I'll proceed to the next question.
It's not.
You're recording? Okay, perfect. Perfect. So we'll try to have the meeting recorded. Thanks, Julio. Um, and as Alana said, these two questions were already addressed on Discord. So I hope that is not um, that bad that didn't get recorded. Um, but do we have a, any question associated to this information that I've just shared? Well, not apparently. So I'll proceed with the next question. The next question that we received um, said, when we created the scale spectra table with all the records, and we write the values to the table on the NHR3 platform, which is the alternative platform that we suggest in the ground motion selection guide. We find these headings different from the values found in the selection guide report. In particular, we get different scale factor and different mean square error. Is this a problem? All values that we use are as in the selection guide. So basically, this team in particular is saying they tried following step by step using the same values that they found in the selection guide, but when they got scale factors, their scale factors look different. I'm not sure how much different they could have looked. Um, but the advice I would give here is that the ground motion selection guide is, as the name states, it's just a guide. It doesn't override rules and engineering judgment, meaning that if at some point down the path you think you can either do something different or you get some different result that you can justify, you feel it's reasonable, and you're sure everything you're making a good use of the platform, I think there shouldn't be a problem for any difference that you find or any diversions that you want to do relative to the ground motion selection guide. Just make sure that whatever changes or whatever difference that you find, you're able to justify them in your proposal when you describe how you did the selection. There is one of the requirements of the proposal is to be able to describe how that process was, and that includes what assumptions you made, um, in ground motion selection. There is not a unique set of ground motions that is going to perfectly represent um, what do you expect. At aside, ground motion selection is actually a whole field of study, and teams will probably get different results if they do different changes. So as long as it's um, you can justify what you did and your results really do not look too crazy, you should be fine with your proposal. Um, does that make sense? I think on Discord we got also another question that was similar that they were trying to follow, and at some point they got a different result. I think it was in terms of the distances, and and I gave a similar answer. Take this as a reference of the steps that you have to take, but if at some point you find any differences, uh, just make sure to either report in or make sure that you are following the steps correctly. And if you see any differences, just write them down. Um, and then I'm just going to make sure here. Yes, the next question was, in the rules, the distance between elements in the plan is clarified, but is there any rule for elevation? Is there a minimum or maximum distance in the vertical plane? Uh, and then For that question, I'll refer you to, I'll give you the section 8.2.d addresses a minimum height clearance. So there's a minimum height clearance for rentable area, which is 2.25 inches. So that there gives you a reference of what's the minimum height um, that you should have uh, in your structure. And then Charlie, do you remember if besides that minimum height clearance, um, I think there is a limit also when it comes to the general dimensions of the buildings that would so like length of frames that would also probably limit the dimensions of your height if you're if you want to keep elements with like a round number, but it's basically the height clearance, those 2.25 inches. Again, the section where that is described is section 8.2 um, b. 8.2d is the sentence right before the last paragraph defines that minimum clear height. So I hope that clarifies. The next question was, for architectural design, can we make intervention on surrounding building, like on unbuilt existing land surrounding the tower? Is it possible? How far the intervention did the architecture could the architecture do? Um, and then for this one, Kayla, you work a little bit more on the problem statement for this one. Maybe you have a better advice for them regarding how much can they intervene in the surrounding area of the building, particularly on built land. So I assume the team wants to do some kind of like yards or work that is not necessarily associated to construct another structure. But if the team is present in the meeting and they want to clarify, that could be good too.
Yeah, I don't think I have a straight answer for that at the moment. Maybe Charlie can chime in a little bit. Um, but we did give them a plot of land. So I would think anything within the confines of that plot would be reasonable.
Yeah. Mm. So yeah, I would. Yeah, I guess I would make the focus of the architecture the building itself, right? So that's the major thing that we're evaluating. But if you think it can add extra to your proposal, or part of the architecture really depends on having this extra work on the on build land, first make sure to properly justify it in your proposal, and second, just as Kayla said, keep or limit yourself to the uh, lot area that is presented. I think this is in the boring logs, right? That lot area that's present in the boring logs. So that summarizes the questions that we received online through the Google form. Now I would like to open, um, I guess, the mic for any student captain or general student member that has a question that they think um, could get answered. We'll try to answer all of them. Thank you, Charlie. For so Charlie says refer to section 8.2a. Um, for elevation requirement, there's a 1/4 inch tolerance. I repeat, do we have perhaps any extra questions on the rules, a proposal, anything you would like to ask? Um, the proposals are due on the 15th, so basically 2 weeks away. And just a reminder of what we're expecting. Perfect. Julia, raise a hand. So,
Hi, sorry. I had a quick question about how different the dampers have to be year to year. Like, is it us just changing the design, or does it have to be a completely new type of damper?
well, I think the proposal cannot be definitely a copy and paste of what was done the previous year. I would try to aim for something as different as you could. So in a previous year, your team used, I don't know, a 2 inch damper, and this year you're trying to use the same damper but 3 inches long. We would still consider that like the same proposal, just because there was no significant change relative to previous years. And Charlie and Kayla, you've been here longer. How much of differences do teams usually make between year and year for dampers?
I'm gonna let Charlie answer this one.
Charlie, we cannot hear you for some reason. Okay, let's wait for Charlie a few moments while he figures out what's happening with the mic. But yes,
Can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So I think most of the team did choose to use complete different, like conceptually complete different dampers, but we do find some teams just use a similar methodology compared with like the year before. So we asked them to, we asked, we seek further explanations on why they choose that and how they think it's that differentiates between their previous like design. So in that case, we might need ask we might need to ask more information for teams who had similar design to further consider we think that's like allowable for this year's use.
Yeah. And the reason for that is because the damper is assessed as part of the also the innovation, like it like innovation award. So when the structural innovation award is chosen, dampers are one of the items that are looked at. So that's why we encourage to select a different option than previous years. So it's also beneficial for you to go different because it puts you um, as a candidate for the structural innovation award.
Okay, so just to clarify, if we used a viscoelastic damper last year and we were to use a similar viscoelastic damper, but in a like if we added to the building in like a completely different location and method of usage of the damper, would that be considered the same damper or would that be different? I don't know if that makes sense.
Um, Charlie, could you answer to this one? Because I
I
think
think it really depends, but if you're using exact same mechanism for the viscous damper, I don't think that will be approved. But say if you use slightly, well, I mean, how that I mean, if you use this kind of material for the viscous damper the year before, using complete different materials, and you put it into different location and justify why you think that you should put that damper in that location, I think most likely it will be approved, but still it really depends on how you do that proposal.
yeah. So I guess I would encourage you to find perhaps what improvements could be made to the damper itself, either in the literature. There's like no damper is perfect, so I'm sure there is some kind of drawbacks. And if you can find a way to propose an innovative solution for that, so maybe you're using the same damper, but you're improving the way it's used relative to what's in the literature, or um, something that is completely new in their usage, we may be able to prove it. But again, we encourage to use a different solution just so that you have certainty that you're going to get approved, or more certainty, rather than using a previous year's solution.
Thank you.
Any other questions from public? We have a question from Omer. I'd like to confirm whether it is acceptable to attach the wall member to vertical frame members, or wall member to wall member with adhesive. I believe this approach aligns with the rules, specifically the stipulation that any two adjacent vertical frame members must have a clear space of at least 0.25 inches between them. Um, when you say um, attach the wall members to vertical frame members, do you mean, Omer, like, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, so sorry if I'm making a mistake there, but do you mean like having the frame members be a sort of boundary element for the wall? Or could you clarify just a little bit more how the attachment would be? And also, when you say wall to wall member, is this like in elevation, like one wall on top of the other, or you're meaning like side by side? Um, if you can clarify, then we can give you a more accurate answer. So while we wait for, like, this example for wall to wall member, I'm not sure I'm following. Do you mean like, yeah, if, yeah, this question's a little bit hard for me to answer because I'm not sure uh if you if I'm understanding correctly how things would be attached. Um we would probably, if you can, on Discord, um post a figure, and I think you've done this before through email, but if you can post, I have no drawing for now. May I ask you on Discord? Yes, please. So on Discord, if you can attach a drawing of exactly what we mean, I think, I, of what you mean, I think it would be easier for us to answer the question. No, thanks to you for your understanding. And then everyone, for those who may not know, there's the Discord channel where you can post questions that I can clarify. And the advantage to post them on Discord relative to sending an email is that all of the SDC chairs are on Discord and anyone can answer your questions. Well, if you send it through email, it will be only me, and my reply rate might be slow if I have an exam, if I had a midterm, if I have research to do. So highly encourage not to send questions over email, but on Discord, where they can get a timely response most of the time. Um, we have another question from Julia. Is the weight of the damper used to calculate the construction cost? Is the weight of the damper used to calculate the construction cost? I think the construction cost. Let me go back check the rules. So I assume you are in section 4.4, where it says the annual building cost will be obtained as a function. And I'm just going to share here. So I think this is where what Julia is asking. The annual building cost will be obtained as a function of this construction cost, CC. And C sub C includes the weight of the building. And this is the weight of the building um, that you get during testing, which means basically if your dampers are attached, we will weight this on site. So that would be definitely included. If you don't get your dampers approved, they won't be part of your system. In which case, the building weight would not be. But this is the weight of your structural model, and that's how the construction cost. So this is measured on shake day. Um, and yeah, so I hope that answers the question. And thank you for the clarification there, Charlie. Yes, it does not include the weight of the floor dead loads. It's just the weight of the structural model. Basically, what you bring to us, we weigh, and we subtract the base plate and the roof plate using um, the replicas that you are asked to provide. So those plate replicas are used, or secondary plates are used to estimate what the weight of the original plates are and subtract it from the building. Let's see, do we have any other question? Devon, go ahead, Devon.
Okay. Hi, I have a quick question regarding the floor area calculation. I was wondering if a floor area spans greater than 2.5 inches, will there be a deduction for that floor area from the rentable floor revenue calculation, or will the whole floor not be counted for the revenue? Thank you.
Do you mean the separation between the frame members in a floor plan?
Yeah, so there's the rule about that, that the clearance for the floor areas should not be greater than the 2.5 inches. I was wondering if there is going to be a deduction for the calculation.
Yeah, basically what we do is that whatever part does not meet the criteria just doesn't count for rentable floor area. So it's as if that area couldn't be used, or couldn't be rented. So um, that's what it does. But it does not, um, to if I remember correctly, it does not incur in a violation per se. Um, it just doesn't get your floor area counted. And you want to maximize your rentable floor area. But if there's any reason why, like you need it to be that way, just know that it's not going to be counted as rental floor area.
Okay then. So it will be counted for that only for the floor area only, but not the whole floor, right?
Yeah, no, it's not the whole floor. It's just that, say you have a region within your floor that does not meet, that region isn't counted for the rental floor area. But if the rest of that floor does meet the criteria, then the rest of the floor would count. Um,
Okay, thank you.
and I think, Charlie, you're helping Julia with the question here on the chat, but I'm just going to read it in the meantime. Julie's asking, can we have the structural floor members in floors 1 and 14 as long as it doesn't qualify as floor area with non-structurals? Um, yeah, thank you, Charlie. Basically, yeah, you want to confine your structural model to the maximum footprint that is allowed. And Hossein asks, does the number of floors have any positive effect in general? Um, well, that's we we give freedom to students to select the number of floors because the answer to that, is not as direct. If you have more floors, well, you have more area to rent, but you also have a building that now weighs more. And also you have to deal now with the- more dead loads. So just as in a real building, the answer is not. I don't think it's that as straightforward. The teams need to evaluate. That's part of their proposal to evaluate what's the building height that they want to use, because building higher has benefits and also has challenges. Charlie, do you want to comment on that a little bit more? Or maybe Kayla?
There is a minimum number of floors in the rules, and I believe it's 15 floors, correct?
I'll confirm with you.
Okay.
Um,
But there is a minimum number of floors and there is a maximum number of floors.
yes,
And
it's
so
19.
15 to 19, thank you. If you really want to win the competition, you need to have the maximum rentable floor space that you can have. So that would be the 19 floors. If you want your structure, if you have to ship it and you want it to survive, some teams go ahead and use a lower number of floors just to help save on shipping costs, but they won't have that same maximum amount of income. So there is a toss up, but just as long as it's within that minimum to maximum floor numbers. There's pros and cons to doing the minimum, and there's pros and cons to doing the maximum.
And then, yeah, Julia, for the question that you're asking, um, if if you think if I think a sketch as Charlie's saying could help us a little bit more. So in that case, um, Hussein says, so making it of 19 floor has more advantages even though it has extra challenges. Um, I think in general case, um, yes, but I think this is really team dependent because for a team, the shipping could be any specific team, the shipping could be like a really challenge task, even more probably than whatever they might gain from the rentable area, just because of the possibilities of the structure getting damaged in the way. Um, and for some other teams, just completing 19 stories, if the teams are small, could be more challenging than maybe completing 15 stories. So it's the answer to that is really dependent. But if you don't have any limitations of that, then go for 19 floors. Let's see, do we have any other question? Well, if there are no more questions, um, I have a question. Perfect, Hossein, related to the straight form of the building. Go ahead, Hussein, and you can either type in the chat, or if you feel comfortable with speaking, you can also speak aloud. Let's wait for Hussein question. Hussein asked, "Can the building be curved or straight rectangular?" Is this, huh? So basically, I mean, technically, I think that would be.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Hussein.
I want to explain it more. I mean, according to the architecture, can I
Mhm.
make it more curved or it should be straight rectangular? We were discussing it with our team, so we're a bit confused about that.
I think there's nothing in the rules that says you cannot make it curved. Um, but I would say I would encourage perhaps to address that architecturally, and not so much in the structural model. So if you can keep your structural model with a rectangular layout for the floor plan, but then accommodate your facade in the renders, I think that would just be that would be better for um, because I'm I think having a curved shape will really make difficult the evaluation of floor rentable areas. So I'm just like thinking to future when we were to evaluate your structure. It's possible, it's doable. You will not be breaking any rules. It would just be really challenging to measure every floor um, for the structural model.
So
We
it's
had
better to use the one with the straight rectangular shape in order to get it easier when doing the structural analysis and the architecture.
yeah. In terms of the structural model, yeah. So like every floor, I think you're meaning like every floor plan be rectangular, right? Uh,
Yes, yes.
yeah, but again, that's just us telling us like to make our job a little bit easier in the evaluation, given that we have lots of teams. But I don't know. Uh, Kayla and Charlie have been in the in the SLC longer. Have we ever had like a curved building? Uh,
From what I can remember, I don't think there's ever been like a curved floor plan. There might have been some that were like hexagonal or octagonal that we could still go ahead and easily calculate the floor area. But even if you were to do a pure circle floor area, there's still only the maximum floor area that you can do just based on the given dimensions. So if your circle diameter is the same as the square, you're actually going to be losing that floor area. And then all of the other rules of member length still apply. So you're going to have a lot more members in order to go ahead and get a curve, just because the length has to be less than what we specify. Does that make sense?
Probably I get it. So is it better to go with something more straight?
For the structural model and for the analysis, yes. But for the architecture, you can go as crazy as you want for your rendering.
Okay, thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Looking here at the chat, don't see any more questions. So if there are no more questions, I think we can wrap up our clarification meeting. Jose, do you have any
Yes,
further questions? Go ahead.
yes. Sorry, I'm asking a bit more questions, but I have to be sure. Something is not clarified for us. The weight shouldn't exceed 5 lb. Am I right?
Yes, so the
Not the
weight,
structural amount.
yeah, your weight shouldn't exceed 5 pounds, but this is, yeah, this is a good question. That is including the plates and everything. So like just as you shipped it, we weighed it, and that shouldn't exceed 5 pounds. So, and that's an important question because last year there was a team that had a structural model that exceeded the weight just because they didn't account for the fact that it was the weight of the whole structure that couldn't exceed 5 pounds, including base plate, roof plate, as you shipped it.
Including the base plate, roof plate, and the dumping device, it should be in total
Less than 5 pounds.
5 pounds. Okay.
And then Marisa had a question regarding footprint. We That question was addressed by Charlie, but I'll just repeat it here for those who are listening and probably will look at the video. She was asking, what is the building footprint? The building footprint is basically you go take the floor that has the largest area in plan, looking from above, and that's a building footprint. We have few more minutes left, so if there is any other question, feel free to ask them. Is there a minimum or maximum distance in the vertical plane? Um, if you mean elevation, um, there is a limit on the clear height. Um, and I'll point out where that is in the rules again. Um, it's section 8.2D, 8.2D. The minimum height clearance for rentable floor area is 2.25 inches. So you have to make sure that, and there is also, there needs to be an access point, which is defined as an opening with width of 1 inch and a height of 2.25 inches. So the way we will evaluate this on the competition day is that we will basically create a rectangle with those dimensions, kind of simulating a person that is entering the building. And if we cannot access a part of the building using that uh, uh, rectangle as reference, we would not count the areas that we cannot access as rentable area. So that would be the minimum. On the upper side, um, there's no limit, but you have that minimum height clearance there, and also consider for those teams who are still listening, it's not only the height clearance, but it's also that width of access point. Think that that could be a door that you're going to install or a hallway. Um, so some teams last year would put diagonal braces all around their structure, uh, and they would have a triangular access point that would meet the height clearance, but the width wouldn't be met because the access point is a rectangle defined 1 inch by 2.25 inches. So just make sure that if you were to simulate those doors or that little person that had those dimensions, uh, that you can access the points that you want to be rentable area. Does that help, Luca, or anyone who perhaps was wondering about the minimum heights? Yeah, and okay, on that I'll repeat because it was a little sad. So last year we had a team that raised the whole thing. The whole structure was fully braced in all the perimeter, and there was no access point. So that basically meant that they didn't have much of the rentable area that they were counting on. You don't want that to happen to you, so just make sure that you check those access points. And that is described, as I said, section 8.2.d. And I just write it. Oh, and just to clarify, because I think I misspoke before, Table 4 actually defines floor and roof elevations. So the tolerance that Charlie is mentioning is that you can move within that quarter-inch tolerance um, from those established elevations as well. Thanks for pointing that out, Charlie. So right in the chat, we have Table 4 from the rules. We have section 8.2.a and section 8.2.b that deal with heights. Okay, I think we reached the hour. So
I would
thanks.
like to ask for something. Would you organize any online meeting other than this one? It was more effective than asking on Discord or writing by mail. If you can do it, I don't know, once per 2 weeks maybe.
I'm not sure if once every 2 weeks is something that we will do, but if definitely there's interest in another rule clarification meeting, we'll probably host one um, after proposals are due. So this is probably the only one that we're organizing before the proposals are due in 2 weeks, just because everyone is busy um, with finals and projects. But if there is interest, we will uh, discuss the likely organization of another one um, for beginning of next year. But I don't want to promise anything. That's something that the SDC chairs are still. We basically, this was our pilot, and depending on how much interest we had, we'll consider repeating it or not. But thanks everyone for coming. We will um, post a summary of the questions that we received online. You can ask anytime on Discord, yes. And we are working to give timely responses. Um, and yeah, if you have any more questions, just put them on Discord. We'll try to post the summary of questions that we received here that we had discussed. For those who we couldn't address the question just because we need a figure for their qualification, please post them on Discord. And given that we received several times questions regarding the height, I think we'll just make a special emphasis in our summary about what are the limitations regarding height, what's a minimum height clearance, and also that table 4 that I just mentioned at the end that I had forgotten to mention about regarding what are the elevations and the tolerance you can be within those elevations. And that summary would probably be posted in the weekend just because it takes time to prepare. Um, but thanks everyone for coming and have a great rest of your week.